They lied to your face about the Three-Fifths Compromise. And it is working. I want you to do something for me before you read another word. I want you to think about a time a teacher told you something with total confidence, something that turned out to be flat out wrong. Maybe they told you that blood is blue until it touches air. Maybe they told you Albert Einstein failed math as a kid. Maybe they told you humans only use 10% of their brains, delivered with authority, written in your notes, believed for decades. That is exactly what has been done to you with the Three-Fifths Compromise. And the people doing it are not confused teachers. They know what they are doing. I am a science teacher. I deal in facts. And I am genuinely angry about this one because it is not just wrong. It is weaponized wrong. It is wrong with a purpose. It is wrong designed to make you feel a certain kind of fury so that you hand over your constitutional republic without asking too many questions. So I am going to fix it right now. Plain English, no spin. You might want to share this when we are done. I will ask again at the end. The story they tell you. A Virginia state senator stood before his colleagues recently and explained with great emotion and moral confidence that the Three-Fifths Compromise counted Black people as only 3/5 of a person, and that this gave Southern slave states more power in Congress and the Electoral College. He used this to argue that the Electoral College itself is a racist institution that needs to go. This argument gets repeated constantly on cable news, on social media, in college classrooms. It sounds like a history lesson. It sounds like moral reckoning. It has the aesthetic of righteousness. It is also completely, provably, historically backward. Not slightly off, not a matter of perspective, backward. Here comes the part they never teach you. Who actually wanted full counting? The Constitutional Convention, 1787. The question on the table, how do we count enslaved people for the purpose of congressional representation? The Southern slave states said, count every single enslaved person as a full person. The Northern free states, the ones moving toward abolition, said, count them as 0. Read that again. I will wait. The abolitionists, the people who wanted to end slavery. They wanted enslaved people counted as 0 in the population totals. Why? Because they understood the game being played. Congressional representation means power, House seats, electoral votes, the ability to pass or block legislation, including legislation to abolish slavery. If the South counted every enslaved man, woman, and child as a full person for representation purposes, while those same people had 0 rights, 0 votes, and 0 legal protection, then the masters were literally using the bodies of the people they were brutalizing to multiply their own political power in Congress. It was the most cynical power grab in the history of American politics, and the slave owners were the ones demanding it. The Three-Fifths Compromise was a limitation. It cut the count. It reduced what the South was demanding. It trimmed seats from the slave states' expected total. The abolitionists lost the argument for 0, but they sure did not lose it all the way. The math that blows the whole narrative up. Let's put numbers on this, because numbers do not care about feelings. The 1,790 census counted approximately 700,000 enslaved people. Under the 3/5 rule, they contributed 420,000 to the population count, meaning 280,000 people were not counted. That gap represented real congressional seats and real electoral college votes that the South did not receive. Now flip the script to the version the left wants you to believe is the compassionate one. Full counting. Count all 700,000 as whole persons. Watch the South's congressional delegation expand. Watch their grip on the House tighten. Watch their control over the presidency through the Electoral College solidify. Watch abolition become structurally harder to achieve for another generation. Or 2, I am going to say something that will make certain people's heads spin. The Three-Fifths Compromise may have made Abraham Lincoln's election mathematically possible. Let that land. Without it, Southern slave states dominate Congress. They dominate the Electoral College. A Republican running on opposing slavery's expansion elected how, exactly? The very provision they are calling racist in their speeches was one of the structural reasons abolition could eventually be achieved. Quinn's Law #6 applies here like a glove. Facts are the enemy of liberalism. These facts are inconvenient enough that they just disappear from the presentation. Now about that party. The party that wanted enslaved people counted in full. The party whose power base depended on that expanded representation was the Democratic Party. The slave-holding interests, the people who built their economy and their political identity on human bondage. The Republican Party was literally founded in 1854 to oppose the expansion of slavery. Congressional Republicans passed the 13th Amendment unanimously. Democrats provided only minimal support. When the Civil Rights Act of 1964 came up for a vote, Democrats filibustered it for 75 calendar days. Democrat Senator Robert Byrd former KKK recruiter, led a 4-hour filibuster against it. And today, the descendants of that political party stand up in state senates and on cable news and tell you the 3/5 compromise was a conservative sin. Quinn's Law #2. What they accuse their opponents of is precisely what they themselves did. The projection runs so deep and so consistent that it has become a generational tradition. The party that wanted slaves counted as full persons to amplify their own power now lectures everyone else about the immorality of that same clause. The audacity would be impressive if it were not so damaging. So why the lie? This is the part I need you to really sit with, because it matters more than the history lesson. They are not confused. They are not working from incomplete information. The information is available. It has always been available. Madison's notes of debates in the Federal Convention of 1787 are not classified documents. The constitutional voting records are public. Any state senator with a research staff could get this right in about 45 minutes. They do not want to get it right, because the goal is not to honor the memory of enslaved people. The goal is to delegitimize the Electoral College, get rid of it, replace it with a national popular vote, which means that Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York decide every single presidential election for the rest of American history. Which means that the farmer in Iowa, the factory worker in Ohio, the small business owner in Tennessee, none of them matter anymore in a presidential race. The lie about the 3/5 compromise is not a history lesson. It is a constitutional coup with a slave narrative taped to the front of it. James Madison wrote about this in Federalist No. 10. He warned about factions, organized groups that pursue their own advantage at the expense of the rights of others and the common good. He said, democracies are where faction tyranny flourishes. He said, a republic, with its constitutional filters and checks, is the protection against it. The Electoral College exists for exactly this reason. Geographic diversity in presidential elections prevents the tyranny of a few concentrated population centers. A state senator using a deliberately inverted history of slavery to dismantle those constitutional guardrails is, and I want to be precise, textbook Madison faction behavior. He already wrote the chapter on it. We just stopped teaching it. What the Constitution actually says. Article 1, Section 2. Apportionment formula. 3/5 of all other persons, meaning those not free. It is a mathematical formula for distributing political representation. It does not say black people are worth less. It does not assign a moral value to a human life. It is the reduction of a power grab by slave states. The word democracy appears in the United States Constitution 0 times. Article 4, Section 4, guarantees every state a Republican form of government. Not democratic, not majority rule. Republican. The founders were not confused about the difference. They were not primitive. They had read their history, including the history of every democracy that collapsed into tyranny, and they built something designed to survive. What we have now is people who have not read their history, or who have read it and chosen to misrepresent it, standing in positions of authority and teaching the next generation a lie. And I have had enough of it. One question. I genuinely want an answer to this. If your moral position is that enslaved people deserve to be counted as full persons, and if doing so would have given more power to their enslavers, more congressional seats to the slave states, and made abolition harder to achieve, then whose side are you actually on? The memory of enslaved people is being used. Their suffering is being converted into political currency for an argument that if those people could have spoken, they would likely have recognized immediately. They lived under the plantation system. They understood what it meant when the master class got more power. The least we can do, the minimum we owe them, is tell the truth about their history instead of weaponizing it. But what do I know? I'm only a sassy science teacher, a medically retired Army combat medic, and a guy who assigned Madison's Federalist No. 10 as required reading and still has the annotated copy. If this changed how you see the history, like this article, so the algorithm knows real history still matters. Share this with someone who was taught the wrong version in school. Comment with what you think. I read every single reply. And if you want more of this, the data, the history, the science, the stories, join Pski's Classroom community or follow me on YouTube. Even better, subscribe to my account. It is about the cost of a cup of coffee per month. That is it. Your support keeps this classroom open, and I promise I will never run out of material as long as the left keeps trying to outdumb itself. Number MAGA, number veterans, number Trump, at Jack Posobiec, at NWokeness, at Catter2,